Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here,
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
and it's number 103 of Sounding the Shallows.
It is, yeah. We were thinking, weren't we, Adrian, that about the person, about 101 that we were talking about, actually the week before last, but we had some entries for 101.
Better explain what that means for people.
All right, well,
Room
okay,
101.
very, very quickly. Room 101, television programme, idea being that people bring along something they want to dispose of, and oh my lords,
It could be anything, couldn't it?
Yes, it could be anything.
Yeah.
The presenter of the programme chooses one of the three possibles and shreds it in front of the audience. So that's the idea of it. What
Right.
do you put in Room 101?
Right.
We've had forms that you have to write to support people who desperately need help. That was very heartfelt. But we also had somebody who felt very, very strongly about a particular fruit, which was bananas.
Yeah. Well, I was going to write something about it, but fortunately, I've managed to find a spokesman
Yeah.
who wants to speak on behalf of bananas.
Well, I'm
And you've
delighted
agreed
to interview.
him.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I just call him over. Can you just come and sit? Just over here near the microphone, and I'll come over here. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, you are a committed banana supporter. Is that correct?
Yes, I campaign tirelessly on behalf of bananas. I have even changed my birth name to demonstrate my allegiance to the fruit.
Ah, that's very interesting. So your name is...
John.
That doesn't sound very fruity, I have to say.
John Peel.
Ah,
John Peel.
John Peel.
Yep,
And you actually help to run a banana organisation, don't you?
Yeah, that is correct. At the moment, there's just a small bunch of us. We're all members of Can Poop.
Can Poop?
Yes, Christians Against Non-Consensual Peeling of Unripe Plantains. And we meet to discuss issues and offer mutual support and things like playing music, that sort of thing.
Oh, right. Okay. What kind of music do you play?
Bananarama.
Right.
We also very much enjoy the singer Fruit Loaf.
Top Fruit Loaf track?
Most favourite one is I would chew anything for lunch, but I won't chew that.
Right. And in the song, do you actually know what it is he won't chew?
Fruit Loaf would never consume banana flesh in any form.
John, being a little more serious, bananas, they do go through it, don't they?
Yes, they do. In fact, we recently opened a special refuge for bananas who have suffered abuse.
Good heavens! In what way?
Sadly, many have been battered. Tragically, their lives are simply frittered away. A few have been stalked. Some have been frightened out of their...
Skins?
Yes, out of their skins. Others might be undergoing a real crisis of identity.
And your refuge can help them.
Yes, we will never judge a banana, be they straight, be they bent, be they crushed. All are welcome. Each banana is as God fashioned him, or her, or it.
Right. And the person who wrote about her hatred of bananas last week, what would you want to say to her?
I think I would ask, did you encounter a predatory banana at some point in your early life? A rogue banana? Maybe you had a crush on a narcissistic banana. I'm afraid that tends to always end in custard.
But I think what you're saying is that she shouldn't give up.
Oh no, somewhere out there, she will find Mr. Ripe.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, that was a little odd, wasn't it? I'm not sure how far we got
odd.
with him. Anyway, there we are.
Adrian,
So-
something in your brain never fails to intrigue me or confuse me, I have to say.
You mean the banana issue?
The banana issue, I think you have spent some time on the banana.
Yes.
But
There's not much
actually-
left to say about the banana issue, I have to say.
Well, there may be people who would like to say quite a lot about bananas.
That's true.
You never know. I think it is I don't know. It's quite a good idea, though, isn't it, to spend a bit of time at the moment looking at something that just distracts you from some of the things that are going on. I know we keep talking about the things that are going on in the world that are affecting not just the people directly involved, but everyone. And it's hard not to. I mean, we had an email this week, didn't we?
It was a very tough one. It was from actually a lady who lives in America, telling us, and it was very brave of her really to tell us, and very trusting her with this, that about the death of her brother in Ukraine, because she's from Ukraine. Her brother died after just 3 days of fighting in the battle there.
I know, and we're going to hear more and more stories like this, aren't we, of people who are hearing this terrible news, and his grandmother having to hear this terrible news. You know, they've been shoved out of their homes, out of their country, and their menfolk, their brothers, their husbands, their fathers, maybe dying after only 3 days of trying to defend their country.
It's interesting, actually, that reading that email, and I read it early in the morning. I got up early for some reason, sitting on the bed, and it really brought tears to my eyes. And the whole mess of Ukraine is so amorphous, and then suddenly it's about one person.
Always is.
And their family and the hurt that causes, and suddenly it gets really focused, and the pain is sharper than ever. But I do thank her for sending us that.
I think what was significant this week is that it's alongside the thing that's happening in the UK, and for those of you not in the UK, just be thankful that you're not having to hear constant news about something that's now being called Partygate, which is a very unfortunate series of parties and gatherings in Number 10 that are sort of coming to light. And on one level, they are trivial. You know, they are. And there are many people, especially perhaps the older generation, who are saying, look, this is just trivial. You know, the world is in a terrible mess. There's the battle in Ukraine, there's climate problems, there's all sorts of other things. But, just like you were saying, Adrian, for the lady in America, for each individual, for every single individual who had to sacrifice being with somebody who they loved when they were dying, unable, if you're a husband, to be with your wife when she's giving birth, unable to attend a funeral. This isn't trivial. It's huge.
Well, I think if you've given up one or more of the things that you value most in the world, to find that those who told you to do it didn't do it themselves, or didn't impose the same sanctions on themselves, it is very hard to take. And the passion in people telling their stories, sometimes you get the feeling people enjoy getting a bit het up on TV, but these people cannot believe that they went through what they went through and did what they were asked to do, and that there were people doing not the exact opposite, I don't know what that is, but breaking the rules, the rules that they themselves had imposed on others. So yes, it's not trivial. I mean, having a drink and a piece of cake and whatever, and having a party is, in one sense, trivial, but actually it's had a profound effect on people.
And actually, Adrian, it was like the opposite, wasn't it, during the time of Jesus, where the individuals were experiencing something extraordinary, and the people in charge were being driven mad by the passion in individuals, because they wouldn't shut up. People kept having their story, and that story was of something alive and good and different.
If you want to have a bit of a laugh, if you read the story of the blind man,
it's a good one.
Who was one of the 10 lepers who were healed, and his encounters with the Pharisees. Have I got the wrong blind man?
No, the blind man wasn't one of the lepers. He was blind.
Sorry, the blind man.
This just shows that we just
the blind man
talk.
Who was one of the lepers. No, his encounter with the Pharisees, and it's as though it's been written by a comedy writer. That piece, it's really worth reading through. But yes, he was healed, and he keeps saying, "Well, all I know is." Yes. That I couldn't see, and now I can.
Yeah.
And his parents say, well, he is our son. He was blind and now he's not. That's all we can say.
Yeah.
And you can't fight that. You can't argue it.
The DNA of Jesus was such, wasn't it, that you couldn't argue with who he was, because although he did different things all the time, he was always himself.
Yeah.
And what he did was always positive for individuals who needed it. No wonder it was really, really complex for the people who thought they could just make the rules and then have a very good time. I don't know.
Well, you don't often. I don't think I've ever come up against somebody in whom integrity is perfect.
No.
So that you can't battle against the heart of them. You can only battle against them and in the end crucify them in order to get rid of them.
Yeah, to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Of course, the other thing going on this week, which does affect the whole world, is yet another massacre in the US, in Texas, of little children. Goodness knows what this young man had got himself into that meant that he had allowed all the good things to be oppressed, whether it's I'm sure some people will already know. I haven't read the news today, but I'm sure more and more will come out of how he could have got to a point where it even felt feasible to go round and kill small children. But even, there was the contrast, wasn't there, of the passion of the individual, the football coach, it was a coach, saying, so are we going to have one more minute silence? Are we going to have one more impassioned plea for some gun control? And then you have the ones who don't want to be affected by it, who want to have everything their own way, and who even in this situation don't seem to be caring very much about the individuals who are...
I find it very difficult to get into an understanding of the gun situation in America. I've never lived there.
No.
And I know the feelings about that are incredibly strong on both sides. So I don't feel I've ever been able to really comment on it in the way you'd like to. The thing about what's happened is like any meaningless massacre or killing of people, it just leaves you helpless.
Yes.
It leaves you with your arms hanging, your jaw dropping, and thinking, I don't even know what to think about this. All I can feel is pain and sorrow and all the other things, but it makes a mess of your peace.
I suppose in a way it's like the two extremes. So if we go back to the Partygate thing, you've got some politicians saying, really, is this so bad? You've got other people saying it is heartbreaking. And in America you've got the polarised position again, haven't you, of the people who say it's every American's right to bear arms, and you've got people saying at the other extreme saying this has to end. And it's that middle ground that seems to be missing a bit. But also at the fundamental centre of it is the issue of forgiveness, isn't it?
Well, that's another. I mean, we've been talking about trying to deal with desperately wanting to help people with forgiveness for many years now. And there are certain things we've learned about it, I think.
What were you thinking in particular,
well,
Adrian?
One is that you don't dispel pain. You don't dispel hurt. It might go. Sometimes it can be eased and moved away. But there has to be another way of owning your pain and your desperate feelings that you've been badly used. If you want to forgive somebody, you can only start from where you are, not where you should be.
And it's when things crop up like this Partygate thing, isn't it? People might be feeling they have coped with the situation, that they weren't able to say goodbye, or they won't, all those things. But then it's like what is it like? It's almost like being, I don't know, stung by a wasp or something. Suddenly all the pain is there, and you realise you've not really been able to deal with it.
It's like pain from the past, isn't it? I mean, I remember walking past, I can't remember what it was when I was, just a few years ago, walking past a house or a tree or something, and something about what I was passing reminded me of when I was 10, and something was happening at home. And suddenly a wave of feeling went all the way through me. One of the problems we've had in the church at times, certainly in this country and probably other countries, I don't know, is because of the desire to fix and to mend and to make things okay. It's easy to actually find ways for people to bury what's happened to them rather than to make sure they've held it and looked at it and understood where they've reached.
I think it's also, Adrian, because we want to be a little better than we are, don't we? We want to be a little further along. I mean, we would like to be forgiving. We would like to get to that point where we're the other side of the hurt and the anger and the frustration and the confusion and all the other things that are all part of that. But that's really hard, and how people of Ukraine are ever going to get to that point.
I don't know.
And we know that some people do. I mean, you only have to think of somebody like Corrie ten Boom and how she had to battle.
Boom.
What did I say?
Boom.
Oh, well,
right.
there you go.
Boom.
Everybody will be correcting me who's listening to this. But and how she had to battle through to get to a point where she could accept it. And I was thinking, what was it David Watson said, Adrian, before he died? You know, that he had to battle for a while, facing the fact that he was going to die. It was so confusing for everyone that nobody could believe it was going to happen. And he only read the Psalms for a while, didn't he? Because the rest of the Bible just didn't reach him in any way.
I think he said, as far as I can recall, that he moved from wanting to stay and being willing to go to wanting to go and being willing to stay.
Yeah.
And not many people manage that.
No, but he worked at it, just like
he did work at it very hard.
Mandela worked at forgiveness when he was on Robben Island, didn't he? It's hard graft, isn't it?
Well, it's a study in a way, but I'm sure I mentioned before, a couple of years ago, setting out to forgive somebody and finding that I rehearsed my ploys. There are about 4 of them, maybe even 5. I would write a thing in my head to the person concerned, expressing what my hurt, and they were either designed to hurt them, and I realised that very quickly. They're jolly well going to know how much they hurt me and how good it is. So that really wasn't anything. That wasn't forgiveness, or it was pretending it hadn't happened. It didn't really matter, but I just wanted to let them know. So I had to work through these various things. And interestingly, in the end, I had to dump all of those. And what I did was I wrote a very warm, very friendly email to the person, and they wrote me back an incredibly warm email in return. And as I read that email, it went. And I was about to say it hasn't come back. I don't trust the not coming back too much, because things do come back sometimes, but the urgency of it, the depth of it has gone, as far as I know. But finding it is quite difficult.
And especially when things have not been resolved. I mean, there's so many amazing things in the Bible about God forgiving us, aren't there? I mean, it never stops throughout the Old Testament. You know, God saying, just come to me and talk to me and tell me and repent. That word, you know, say sorry. But that is part of it, isn't it? It is, and sometimes when you haven't had somebody say, I got it wrong, I'm really sorry, and you know that that's real and that it's not in order to gain something for themselves, even peace of mind. If you sense that, then it's very, very hard. At the moment when somebody really is sorry, I mean, we only have to think of our children, don't we? You know, there's all the times when they know they've got to say sorry in order that they can go out to play or in order that.
Yeah, of course.
But then there are
That's
the
how you
real
learn,
heartbreaks and sorries when they have been horrid and they're so sorry. And I think a child's sorry, real sorry, is what God is waiting for.
I do remember one of our children who'd broken something very precious to us, and as we walked in the door, we'd gone out somewhere and came back, and he tried to encapsulate the whole emotional gamut of feeling about being sorry into one hurriedly and very thoroughly rehearsed rush of feeling, and he did actually mean it. But I have obviously worked very hard on it. I understand, you know. I said earlier we'd spent ages talking to people about forgiveness. There are some things people cannot forgive. It's so hard. You might shelve them. You might put them aside. You might understand that you have to still own them a bit, even though you still feel them. But as I said at the beginning, I think the crucial thing, if you're talking about talking to God, is to say to God, this is where I am. And if it is that you can't forgive, to say, I can't forgive. It hurts too much. But I want you to know where I am, and I want us to be together in this. I mean, God is not silly. He may be omniscient, but he's not stupid, is he?
But maybe that's what we ought to be praying for people in Texas, Adrian, people in Ukraine, that, you know, that they are given an extraordinary gift of forgiveness as time goes by. I have no idea how I would begin if one of my children had been killed or injured or hurt, you know, or abused. We have been fortunate that none of our children have had to go through that. I have no idea, and I would not even consider suggesting how people go about that, except to know it's their own long, hard journey.
The reason for
no, sorry.
I was going to say, and the reason for praying for that for them is, and we probably overuse the phrase mental health nowadays, but for the sake of your own health, your inner health, to find some peace over this is really important. So you just start with the truth and then move slowly towards understanding what's happening in you and in others. It's hard. So.
Well, you know the person who wrote about bananas.
Yeah.
Well, I do know she is a poet, and she has
indeed,
written a most extraordinary poem about Judas and whether Judas could ever feel forgiven. And that is a whole can of worms.
Well, there you are. There's a question for you. Would Jesus forgive Judas if he went down into hell and met him, if that's where he was? What would they say to each other? Yeah, that's
well, I think this poet has taken that idea and really run with it. So it's quite a long poem. It's extraordinary, and it brought tears to my eyes. But maybe we'll share a bit of it next week. We'll check with her if that's okay. Meantime, you know, we're still happy about 101. We'd still love to know what your response to some of the things we've talked about this week are. I know it all got a little bit heavy, but we've been feeling quite sad, really, haven't we, about a lot of things going on just at the moment. So
there's a few 101s.
I'm sure you are too. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
And bananas. Anything else you want to write passionately in defence of? That's fine by us too. Okay. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.